Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we are talking about the fall swing for PGA Tour golf. The President's Cup was last week, so now we are back into kind of the regular PGA Tour schedule, even though, we are still in the fall swing. But we've got the Sanderson Farms Championship coming up this week, and we're here to break it down in this episode. We are going to go over everything you need to know about the host course, the Country Club of Jackson, and then we're going to take a look at the board and take a look at some key stats and let you know who we like from a DFS betting and one-and-done perspective this week. With it being a fall swing event, the field is not all that great. The course is not all that great. So we don't have a ton to talk about. This will be a little bit shorter than the rest of my previews, but we will still look to get you guys all of the information that you need to pick some winners here for the Sanderson Farms Championship. If you're normally a member of our college football audience, welcome to the golf show. We're going to do this weekly throughout the season as well. And so if you're normally of the golf audience, I highly suggest you check out our college football content, which is going to be dropping tomorrow for the Week 6 Saturday slate. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in and let's start talking about the host course for the Sanderson Farms, the Country Club of Jackson. All right, so I got to be honest, y'all, the Country Club of Jackson, not exactly my favorite host course on the PGA Tour season, not exactly the most interesting host course on the PGA Tour season. It just seems like a very, I don't want to say average because it's certainly a nice golf course. It's certainly a golf course that any, average Joe would be proud to be a member of, but it just seems like a very plain selection, nothing really unique that stands out about it other than maybe the location in Mississippi that would make the PGA Tour want to select this course to play at as a year after year tournament. So basically the Country Club of Jackson is a par 72 like a lot of courses on the PGA Tour. It is a little under 7,300 yards, so it is not on the long side by any stretch of the means for a par 72. There are 4 par 5s on this course. Scoring on them is going to be very key to winning. They are all 4 scoreable. All 4 feature big incentives for going for the green on the second shot as opposed to, laying up and trying to play it as a 3-shot hole. Basically, this is one of the easiest courses on the PGA Tour schedule. And when you see a flyover for it, like we're watching on YouTube right now, when you see a flyover for it, it makes sense as to why it's a very easy golf course. The fairways themselves are not super wide. They stand at about 29 yards on average, but it's really hard to tell where the fairway ends and where the rough begins. The rough is super duper low. It's really not a hazard at all to have to hit out of the rough at this course. And the driving lanes are actually quite wide where, yes, there's a lot of holes that are tree lined, but there's a lot of bailout areas. There's a lot of places where, you can look at from the tee and say, okay, I can afford to miss right on this hole, and just kind of gear your shot towards that because, the worst case that can happen is you're sitting in the rough. Tree trouble, even though there's a lot of trees on this course, is not super common because guys are able to play away from them. The course itself is also just supremely flat. The greens themselves are supremely flat. So there's just no real way that this course is going to pose a whole lot of difficulty. The only way that they can get it to play any more difficult this week than what we're used to seeing is if they were to let the rough grow out, which would be a big surprise, or if they were to just make the fairway and greens play supremely firm and fast. That'd really be the only way that they can make it that difficult. Water is in play on about 5 holes, but really it's not like a big hazard on all 5 of those holes. It's just kind of adjacent on some of them. It really only comes into play on like 2 of them. But anyway, this is just a super plain design, right? Like this is just your stereotypical Southern United States country club that is a parkland design with trees, with, it just very average holes. Like a lot of the par 4s are very average length. There's not really any long par 4s. And so the name of the game this week is going to be keeping it in play off the tee, sticking it close on approach, and making your birdie putts. This week is really going to come down to approach play and putting to me. Distance can be an advantage here because obviously you're going to be giving yourselves shorter approaches into greens, but it's not really that big of an advantage because just about everybody is still going to be in play off the tee. Even if you miss the fairway, you're going to be hitting from the rough, which is not a big penalty. So at this course, you can afford to be short off the tee. You can afford to be inaccurate off the tee, but you're going to have to dial in your approach, or you're going to just have to make a crap ton of putts. The interesting thing about this course is when you look at the list of winners, it's just such a wide array of golfers. You have one of the shortest hitters on the PGA Tour in Ryan Armour, who won this event. You have one of the longest hitters on the PGA Tour in Cameron Champ, who won this event. You have one of the best putters on the PGA Tour in Mackenzie Hughes and Sam Burns, who have won this event. And then you have one of the worst putters on the PGA Tour in Luke List, who's won this event. So basically, with off the tee being a place where there's very minimal penalty and very minimal reward, the way you can separate yourself on this golf course is by being really, really dialed in on approach or really, really dialed in with the putter. So for our key stats this week, that is pretty much what we're going to be looking at. The key stats this week I find to be strokes gained approach. That's going to be paramount to any PGA Tour event, but more so this week because that is going to be a primary way that you can separate yourself from the rest of the pack. Strokes gained ball striking in general, this is going to give a little bit of a nod to the guys who are better off the tee than on approach, because if you are bombing it out there, you're going to give yourself easier approach shots. So I don't want to just totally discount off the tee, but I feel like, adding it up as a sum in terms of ball striking is effective there because ball striking is off the tee plus approach. I also want to look at putting on Bermuda grass. This is a Bermuda grass golf course, which, by the way, the Bermuda grass covers this place tee to green. You've got Bermuda rough, Bermuda fairways, Bermuda greens, which is unique to pretty much the southeastern United States. Is the only place you can get away with this agronomy. Jackson, Mississippi is the only real kind of geographical area where the Bermuda has not gone dormant yet. So Bermuda grass all around is certainly going to be important to keep in mind this week, but even more important on the greens. I also want to look at birdie or better percentage because, like I said, as easy as this course is, you're going to have to make birdies if you want to win. In terms of my comp courses, I'm looking at other golf courses that are very driver heavy off the tee because there's going to be nothing here forcing you to lay up. I'm looking at other easy golf courses. I'm looking at other golf courses with a low missed fairway penalty. And I would like to give a bonus if they're par 72 because you're going to have to score in the par fives. But either way, my 3 comp courses this week, all super straightforward. What you see is what you get. Drive it out there as far as you can. Stick it close on approach. Try to make the birdie putt. That's the formula for winning the tournament. And that is Detroit Golf Club, host of the Rocket Mortgage Classic. TPC Craig Ranch, host of the Byron Nelson, now the CJ Cup, honoring Byron Nelson. And then Torrey Pines, which is a slightly more big boy version of this course, a little bit longer, a little bit more difficult, a little more of a penalty if you miss the fairway, but it's still very straight, very straightforward, not a lot of hazards. And so really that's another course that I'm looking at here this week. And you've also seen some crossover winners. Luke List has won at both Country Club of Jackson and Torrey Pines. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick little breather, and then we are going to dive down the rabbit hole. All right, now when I say the rabbit hole, if you've been with us all PGA Tour season, you know that I'm referring to not an actual rabbit hole, but the tool known as the rabbit hole, made by BetSpertsGolf.com, that allows you to create all different kinds of filters and conditions for creating a custom model. It really allows you to own in on the micro skills that each course requires and what's important statistically and what's not. And it's really helped me out a lot in terms of finding guys that I might not have, because you can really filter out the conditions and filters as such that you can find guys who have very unique skill sets that are going to come into play at a specific course. So for this week, here's what we're looking at in the rabbit hole. First off, let's talk about the best ball strikers in this field. So in the calendar year 2024, who are the best ball strikers in this field? Number 1 is Keith Mitchell, followed by Doug Gim, Jonathan Vegas, Chan Kim, JJ Spawn, Nick Hardy, Patrick Fishburne, Mac Meisner, Kevin Yu, and Rico Hoey. If we make it just approach for the calendar year 2024, we got a lot of the similar names, but some different. Doug Gim, JJ Spawn, Chan Kim, Ben Griffin, Keith Mitchell, Nick Hardy, Ches Reavie, David Lipsky, Mac Meisner, and Lucas Glover. Now, another thing that I wanted to look at was strokes gained tee to green on all Bermuda courses. So basically, if you have fairway, rough, and greens Bermuda, how did guys fare at those type of courses? For this list, it's Ben Griffin, Jonathan Vegas, Gary Woodland, Luke List, Alex Smalley, Jacob Bridgman, Chan Kim, Daniel Berger, Stephen Yeager, and Joseph Bramlett. Also wanted to look at strokes gained total at fall swing courses. Basically, this portion of the PGA Tour calendar, who plays the best, right? Because you do kind of see the same group of names pop up in the fall every single year. And that list is Mackenzie Hughes, Seamus Power, Joel Damon, Maverick McNeely, Eric Cole, Taylor Montgomery, Matt Kuchar, Harris English, Grayson Sigg, and Ben Griffin. I also wanted to look at birdie or better percentage on easy golf courses, because I think that's a little bit more valid to look at than birdie or better percentage on hard golf courses, because this is not a hard golf course. So number 1 in that category is Eric Cole, followed by Michael Thorbjornsen, Lucas Glover, Stephen Yeager, Ricky Fowler, Taylor Moore, Sam Ryder, Keith Mitchell, Mac Meisner, and Adam Svensson. I also wanted to look at strokes gained ball striking on courses with a low missed fairway penalty. So basically, your first 2 shots, you don't care about missing the fairway. How do you fare? Top 10 in that category are Keith Mitchell, Gary Woodland, Jonathan Vegas, Cameron Champ, Chan Kim, Luke List, Joseph Bramlett, Kevin Yu, Kevin Doherty, and Grayson Sigg. Now, in terms of comp courses, you look at Country Club of Jackson and you put our comp courses in there as well, who rates out well. Taylor Moore, Stephen Yeager, Troy Merritt, Ben Griffin, Mark Hubbard, Justin Lauer. Is it Lauer or lower? I'm going to go Lauer. Ricky Fowler, Eric Cole, CT Pan, and Nick Dunlap. Then what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at Bermuda putting, but I also put in here a putting baseline just so I can compare who actually gets better at putting on Bermuda versus their baseline. So the top 10 in Bermuda putting are Chris Gotterup, Chad Ramey, Harris English, David Skins, big-time boost to his baseline. Nick Dunlap, also big-time boost to his baseline. Taylor Montgomery, Chesson Hadley, Roger Sloan, Michael Kim, and Bo Hostler as your top 10. CT Pan gets a huge boost from his baseline, as does Mac Meisner, Charlie Hoffman, and Emiliano Grillo. Now, I also want to look at specific putting ranges, 10 to 15 feet and 15 to 20 feet, because I really think this week you're going to give yourself, if you're playing this course right, a lot of putts in between 10 and 20 feet, right? Like it's not going to be super difficult to make that the range that your shot ends up at. And so I want to know who are the best guys in the field at that range. 10 to 15, it's Emiliano Grillo, Mackenzie Hughes, Sammy Valimaki, Kevin Streelman, Anders Albertson, Blaine Hale, Norman Zhang, Ryan Fox, David Skins, and Harris English. Quite an eclectic list there. When you make it 15 to 20, you get Anders Albertson. He apparently is a pretty good putter. Roger Sloan, Rafael Campos, Ricky Fowler, Jacob Bridgman, Patton Kazire, Seamus Power, Callum Tarrant, Justin Suh, and Nick Hardy, with Bo Hostler coming in at number 11. Now, throw all that into a model, and let's see what we get. Number one, it really shouldn't come as much as a surprise after hearing all those stats. Number one in my model is Ben Griffin. Really, he just ranks out really well as an approach player, is really good in the fall swing, is really good on Bermuda golf courses, well, let me rephrase. His weakness of his game is the driver, and this is a course where that's not going to penalize the driver a whole lot if you're not good with it. So Ben Griffin coming in as number one is not surprising at all to me. I love him in DFS this week. I think he's a great outright bet this week. He narrowly missed winning this tournament last year. He went into Sunday with the lead. That happened to him a few times last year. Well, I think he is coming back for blood this year, which is ironic because he is a vegan playing in a tournament that is all about processed meat. But I think that this is a great spot for Ben Griffin, and he is my number one golfer in my model. I knew he was going to come in near the top as I was making the model, just seeing how many categories he kept popping up in. But I think that's a very, very solid number one to start off on. JJ Spawn is number two. So JJ Spawn is an interesting one because basically he is really trending in the right direction. And if you're concerned about the long layoff, like personally, I think this is not a great week to look at recent form. But because, you look at the recent form, if you missed the FedEx Cup playoffs, you had a month off before the Pro Court, and then you had 2 weeks off after the Pro Court to this tournament. But JJ Spawn had really good form at the end of last season, was really dialed in on approach, really good with the putter, which is what we're looking at this week. And he held that form to a T26 at the Pro Court. Really, he was better than that until Sunday. So you've got a guy who's got one of the best recent forms coming in. He's always been a good approach player. He finally has the putter dialed in, and a lot of the putter was on Bermuda grass golf courses, which is his best putting surface. So I think that this is a great spot for JJ Spawn. Not surprised at all to see him come in number two in my model. Keith Mitchell is number three. So basically, Keith Mitchell is one of the PGA Tour's best ball strikers. This is well established. He's really long off the tee. He's generally really good off the tee. He is generally pretty good on approach, right? The problem is, dude can't putt. Has never been able to putt. And so it worries me when you've got Keith in a tournament like this where he's going to have to make some birdie putts if he wants to win the tournament, right? Like he's just going to have to. However, his recent form coming in is probably as good as it's ever been, back-to-back 12th place finishes. Really not great on approach at the Wyndham, but great in every other category both weeks. And Bermuda is his best putting surface. So while I don't necessarily like Keith Mitchell in a tournament like this, a lot of the numbers are pointing to the fact that he is an elite ball striker and the fact that he is a good putter on Bermuda. Well, good relative to him, putter on Bermuda. And that puts him at number three in my model. And I do not have a problem with that. I don't think he's necessarily I don't think he should be the top price player on DraftKings like he is, but he certainly has my interest this week. Push comes to shove, though, I would rather bet Ben Griffin outright to win this tournament. I would rather play Ben Griffin at $900 cheaper in DFS, but I think a lot of other people agree with me on that. So I think that Keith Mitchell, sitting there at $10,400 in DFS, he's not going to be owned a whole lot. And it's really always an interesting situation whenever you have the top golfer in the field that is not significantly highly owned. Now, fourth in my model, this was a little bit surprising to me, was Emiliano Grillo. And when you look at his stats, right, he really is a lot better putting on Bermuda than other grass. He's really good at the mid-range putts, and he's been a pretty good ball striker. 2024 didn't exactly go as he planned. It was not a great year for Emiliano Grillo, but this is a guy that we're getting at a pretty good spot. He's at a very reasonable price tag on DraftKings. He's generally not a good putter, but he randomly has these tournaments where he just pops with the putter. And so I feel like with him, he gives himself enough looks with his ball striking. He should be able to make some of these birdie putts. And at $7,700, I think that's a supremely reasonable price tag on DraftKings. Love Grillo this week. Chan Kim comes in at number 5, and he's kind of like the younger version of Keith Mitchell in this regard, where he is an elite ball striker. He cannot putt. And so if you're a fan of Keith Mitchell this week, you should be a fan of Chan Kim this week as well. Nick Dunlap is number 6 for me. This is probably the guy that I was hoping would come in as number 1 in my model. He played his college golf at Alabama, which geographically, I'm pretty good at geography, I think. I'm a high school math teacher, but I could have done history if I wanted to. Alabama and Mississippi, pretty close together. So he is used to playing on Bermuda. He is really good on Bermuda. It's by far his best putting surface. He is also, when you look at his PGA Tour performances, at his best at very easy golf courses. He is at his best in terms of approach shots for long approach shots, which is what he's going to have a lot of this week into these par 5s. And you look at his best finishes, and it's all golf courses where it's supremely straightforward. T5 at the FedEx St. Jude, very straightforward. There's a lot of water, miss it. T10 at the Rocket Mortgage, Detroit Golf Club, one of my comp courses, very straightforward. T12 at the Memorial, another very straightforward golf course. Like, you're just courses where there's not a whole lot of thinking to be done. And courses that are quite easy, those are the courses that Nick Dunlap is going to pop at. And this is one of those courses. So I think this is a really, really good spot for Nick Dunlap. I think on DFS this week, I'm going to try to start some lineups where I go Spawn, Dunlap, Griffin, and try to backfill it with 3 plays other than that, because I do think that, in all honesty, they're probably my 3 favorite overall guys this week. Nick Hardy is another value play, coming in at 7,100 on DraftKings. He is 7th in my model. Look, he has been just great ball striking recently. And you can look at the overall numbers. They've been really, really good. He just hasn't really been able to cash it in for a great performance because he's been so poor with the putter. But I kind of think that he's, you look at what he's done over the course of his career, he's had some good putting performances. Specifically last year at the Sanderson Farms, he did have a slight gain with the putter en route to a T35 finish. His ball striking is coming in much better form right now than it was last year, though. So I think this is a really good spot for Nick Hardy. It does worry me a little bit that he is going to be probably pretty popular in DFS. I think that there's a lot of people talking Nick Dunlap up this week. So I don't mind him in DFS. I think he is a much better bet guy, though, where you can bet him to win at a really long number, bet him to come top 10, top 20. That would be where my interest would lie with Nick Hardy. 8th in my model is Doug Gim, best approach player in the field in the calendar year 2024. That's his skill set. If you are like me and think, hey, I just want a guy who's going to hit a lot of really good iron shots, Doug Gim would be your guy. CT Pan is 9. So anecdotally, CT Pan fires at a lot of pins. Like, he's a very aggressive golfer. So I don't mind the idea of going after him in DFS. I don't mind the idea of betting him to win because he is a high upside guy. That's generally what he does. I don't think he's a good made cut parlay guy. I don't think he's a good top 40 bet. I think that he's either going to come top 15 or bad missed cut, but he does fire at pins. This is a course where you can fire at pins and get away with it. So I don't mind him at number 9. Charlie Hoffman comes in number 10 in my model, which I was not expecting. He's generally a pretty good putter. He's generally a pretty good approach player. So, those are the 2 stats I was looking at. There you go. He somehow comes in number 10. All right. Those were the top 10 in my model. Now, I do tinker with this model all week long. So if you do want to know who comes in the top 10 in the final version of my model, as well as an article where I profile my core plays for DFS, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks. It's got weekly articles for golf, college football, and NFL that give you DFS scores. And like I said, for golf, you get the model top 10 as well. Also, if you're looking to sign up for something new, maybe a new sportsbook, maybe a new DFS site, player prop site, whatever, head on over to signupexpert.com/MikesPicks. I'm partnering with Sign Up Expert, and what they do is they give you the best offers and promo codes for new users at any DFS, player prop, or sportsbook site. It's really good, and it even syncs to your location to show you what is available to you. I highly recommend it if you're going to try something new here this year. All right, we're going to take a quick breather, talk about a few guys that didn't crack the top 10 of the model, and then we're going to roll on out. All right, so at the top of the board, neither Mackenzie Hughes nor Seamus Power modeled all that well for me. And really, I have to attribute that to the fact that a lot of my numbers were looking at the calendar year 2024 in totality as opposed to recent form. Both of them are playing a lot better recently over the summer and into the fall as they were at the start of the season. So I would attribute that to it a little bit. But both these guys are guys that are at their best at shorter golf courses. They can get supremely hot with the putter. I don't mind either of them. And like I said with Keith Mitchell, I don't think they're going to be highly owned because I think a lot of people are going to start their lineups with JJ Spawn or Nick Dunlap or Ben Griffin. So you can get a huge ownership discount on those two guys. Maverick McNeely, 9,800 is interesting. He's a guy who can just absolutely fill it up with the putter, and I don't mind taking shots on guys like that this week. In fact, other guys that I'm going to be taking shots at in DFS because they can absolutely fill it up with the putter. Bo Hostler at 8,200, Justin Lower at 7,900. I realized I switched it up there. It is. I did say Lauer the first time. After that, there was one more that I want to talk about. Ben Coles, 7,200 is another guy that can fill it up with the putter. So I don't mind taking shots at those guys just because if they do get hot with the putter, they can give you just a random really good performance. Patrick Fishburne is a guy that I'm probably going to be fading in DFS this week because he's like all recent form, and that recent form is from months and weeks ago. I just don't fully trust it. I think a lot of people are going to play him because of that, and I'm willing to fade chalky Patrick Fishburne. I think when you look at the names that he's priced around, I just don't think he's as accomplished as those guys. Maybe he will be in a year or two, but for now, he's a fade for me. Eric Cole's a guy that I love this week. Eric Cole's weakness is that he is short and inaccurate with the driver. You do not get punished for that this year. He's another guy that his recent numbers look a lot better than his season-long numbers. He was great in the fall last year. It's why everybody got on the Eric Cole hype train heading into the 2024 season. So I really do love Eric Cole here. He's another guy that I'm going to be taking shots at in DFS. After that, I do like Mac Meisner. He really let us down at the Procore Championship, but he was trending in a really good direction coming in. Lucas Glover is an interesting one. I feel like Lucas Glover and Luke List are of similar profiles where they're always good ball strikers, never good putters. And if they just happen to bring the putter one week, they give you the upside to win the tournament. It's what happened with Luke List last year. I don't mind Lucas Glover for that reason. I also really like Ryan Fox. Ryan Fox is a guy who's just going to bomb it all over the yard. He's really long off the tee. He can be good on approach. It's generally not the strength of his game. And he can get hot with the putter. Also generally not the strength of his game. But you've got a guy who's going to be giving himself an advantage on pretty much every hole because of how he hits off the tee. I don't mind him at $7,600 on DraftKings. I think he's got more firepower than that price tag indicates. After that, there's only a few more value plays that I really want to mention. Michael Thorbjornsen, like he would have been priced up at like the 9K range if this tournament were held in July, but he kind of faded off a little bit. I think there's a chance he's still just supremely talented. He's a guy that's going to be making my DFS lineups for sure. Grayson Sigg is a guy who tends to play his best at courses with a low missed fairway penalty. I don't mind him at all this week. Pearson Coody is a guy that I neglected to mention earlier, but he can really fill it up with the putter. In fact, courses that de-emphasize tee to green game and emphasize the putter, that's where we like Pearson Coody at. So he's a guy that I'm going to be interested in this week. And then last one that I want to mention is Dylan Wu. So if you're looking for just approach plus putting, Dylan Wu is top 20 in this field in approach. And he is, if my model will let me scroll, it is not right now. Hold on one second. All right, he's 36th in this field in putting. So he rates good in both those categories. I don't mind Dylan Wu for that reason. Just is good in the two stats that we want people to be good at. He's also played his best in the past at courses with wide driving corridors. So I don't mind that. Don't mind him for that reason either. I think he's a pretty good look. Ryo Hisat-Sune, 6,800, rated really well in my model. Just a really strong tee to green game, needs to bring the putter. But really, that's all the interest that I really have in the 6K range. It's really quite ugly outside of those two. But I do think that this is a week where you can go balanced enough in DFS that you can build a lineup without having to really dive into the 6K range a whole lot. So if you're looking to be different, try some of those 6K guys. All right, but that's going to do it for this episode, y'all. Hopefully, we gave you guys plenty of information that's going to help you pick out some winners for the Sanderson Farms this week. Whether you are playing DFS, betting, whether you're doing a fall swing one and done, hopefully we gave you guys all the information that you need to know, and we did it in a very timely and efficient manner. If you like what you saw here in the video today, please help me out. Hit the like button. If you're listening on audio, rate and review. I really do appreciate it when you guys do that. And also make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that we can be with us for the rest of the fall swing on the PGA Tour, as well as all of our weekly NFL and college football content as well. well. But all right, that's going to do it for here, y'all. Under 25 minutes. That's pretty good. Best of luck to you guys this week at the Sanderson Farms. Thank you guys for watching and listening, and I will see you next time.